Night settled over Seattle like a velvet curtain. Soft and expensive. The kind only the wealthy seem to live under. High above the streets, where the city noise softened into a distant hum. The rooftop restaurant shimmered with warm gold light. Glass walls reflected the skyline, the slow movement of clouds, and the silver line of ferries drifting across the sound. At a corner table, always the corner, Adrian Morello sat alone. He was 42. Though time touched him lightly, his suit was cut with quiet authority. Charcoal wool that caught the light in subtle shifts. His expression, as usual, revealed nothing. Adrian was a man built on stillness. The kind of stillness that made others uneasy because it suggested power, control, and the unwavering certainty of someone who never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. People in Seattle whispered about him. They didn't all know what he did. Not exactly. But they knew you didn't cross him. They knew fairness mattered to him more than mercy. And they knew, without understanding why, that he saw everything. Tonight, he lifted a glass of red wine, with the slow, deliberate movement of a man whose evenings never surprised him. Until this one did. It began with a sound he hadn't heard in years. A sharp, desperate crash. A door flung open, hard enough to crack against the wall. The room went still. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations froze. Then she appeared. A girl no older than 9 ran barefoot across gleaming tile floors. Her small feet slapped the surface, leaving faint smudges behind. Her dark hair clung to her face, wild with sweat and tears. A backpack, small and worn, was wrapped in her arms like a shield. She didn't look around the room. She didn't hesitate. She ran straight to Adrian's table. She skidded to a stop just short of him, her breath shuddering in sharp, uneven bursts, her wide eyes lifted to his face, not pleading, not even begging, just desperate. A desperation so raw, it hadn't learned fear of the wrong people yet. Adrian set down his wineglass. The girl gripped the edge of his table, tiny fingers trembling against white linen. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence, it carried like a gunshot. "He's coming," she breathed. "Don't let him take me." Across the room, 2 of Adrian's men shifted, instinct drawing them forward. Their hands moved beneath their jackets, waiting for the smallest nod. But Adrian didn't nod. He simply raised one finger. Just one. It was enough. His men froze mid-step. The entire room seemed suspended, held in a moment that balanced on the knife's edge of something very, very wrong. Adrian studied the girl, taking in every detail, the dirt on her feet, the bruise blossoming along her arm, the fear she struggled to swallow. She clutched that backpack with both hands, knuckles white, like whatever was inside had more value than her own life. "What's your name?" he asked, quiet enough that only she could hear. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily Carver." Her gaze started toward the entrance, and her whole body tensed as if bracing for an impact she couldn't outrun. The door opened again, but this time, no crash followed. A man stepped through with the calm confidence of someone used to being welcomed everywhere he went. He was in his early 50s, polished from head to toe. His suit was expensive, too expensive for a school employee, but carefully chosen to look modest. His shoes shined like mirrors. His smile had the warmth of a practiced therapist. Every detail on him was curated. He paused just inside the doorway, letting his eyes adjust to the restaurant's amber glow. Those eyes skimmed the room, skipped over tables, over couples, over startled patrons, until they landed on Lily. "There you are," he said, voice smooth as honey melting on glass. "We've been so worried." Lily's entire body flinched. The man began moving toward them with unhurried ease. Each step purposeful. Each breath measured. He kept his hands visible, palms open in a gesture meant to soothe observers. A gentle, to paternal image, designed to calm suspicion before it had a chance to grow. "I'm Thomas Hale," he continued, projecting his voice with professional concern. "Her school counselor. I'm sorry for the disruption. Lily sometimes has episodes when she's overwhelmed." He gave a chuckle meant to disarm. Adrian didn't laugh. He also didn't stand. He simply leaned back in his chair, watching the man approach with the quiet interest of someone reading a contract, already aware of its hidden clauses. Hale stopped a few feet from the table. "Thank you for keeping her safe," he said, smiling at Adrian. "She's had a difficult day." Lily pressed herself against the back of Adrian's chair, shaking harder now. She didn't look at Hale, didn't breathe right, didn't move. Then she spoke. A whisper so small, it barely formed a sound, but it landed with the weight of truth. "He doesn't work at my school," she said. "He's lying." For a moment, no one breathed. The smile on Hale's face flickered, reassembled, forced itself back into place. "I can see she's frightened," he said gently, as if Lily were the unreasonable one. "Trauma can distort a child's perception. I'd be happy to explain this outside, away from all these people." Adrian lifted his eyes. They were no longer calm, no longer unreadable. They had sharpened into something colder, something far more dangerous. "Stay where you are," Adrian said softly. Not loud, not threatening, just final. Hale's face twitched. Something behind his eyes shifted, just a ripple. Gone as quickly as it came. But Adrian had already seen it. Lily's small hand found his sleeve. She gripped it with such desperate strength that the fabric wrinkled under her fingers. "He followed me," she whispered. "All the way from school. I ran as fast as I could." Her voice broke. He said he knew where my mum worked." A murmur swept through the restaurant. Hale lifted both hands, smiling as if embarrassed. "Children imagine things." "She's been struggling for Adrian," cut him off with a look alone. And then, in a voice so quiet, the room leaned in to hear. "What did you do to her?" Adrian asked. Hale blinked. "Excuse me, I'm asking." Adrian continued. "Because she ran past dozens of safer places, ran barefoot across the city. She chose this table. Mine. Children don't choose men like me unless the person chasing them is worse." The color drained from Hale's face. Lily tightened her grip. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He didn't stand. He didn't move. He simply let silence close around them like a cage. The restaurant felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. Even the servers stood motionless, instincts telling them something terrible hid behind Hale's polished smile. Lily swallowed hard. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "He watches us," she said. "He stands by the fence after school. He says things. He gives gifts. He told Sarah she didn't have to walk home alone." Her breath hitched. "Sarah hasn't come back." Every whispering conversation in the room died. Even Hale's manufactured smile couldn't survive that. He shifted his weight. Subtle but wrong, like an animal preparing to run. Adrian finally stood. And in that moment, the atmosphere changed entirely. The polished city lights, the clinking silverware, the illusion of safety, all of it faded behind the presence of a man, stepping into a role he rarely chose, but never failed to fill. Lily peeked up at him, hope flickering through fear, and she whispered, as if testing fate, "Please don't let him take me." Adrian stepped slightly forward, his voice calm enough to freeze the room in place. "He won't," he said. "Not tonight. Not ever." The stillness around him was no longer peaceful. It was lethal. And Thomas Hale finally understood. He had chased this child into the one place in the city where no one would ever let him walk back out the same man he came in as. For several long seconds, the rooftop restaurant held its breath. No one moved. No one even reached for their drinks. The only person who seemed completely unfazed was Adrian Morello. He regarded Thomas Hale the way a surgeon might regard a growth he hadn't quite decided how to remove, yet calm. Methodical. With a faint touch of inevitability. "Let's try this again," Adrian said, quietly. "Who exactly are you?" Thomas let out a soft laugh, trying to recover the image of harmless professionalism. "I already told you. I'm Lily's counselor." Children her age, Adrian lifted a hand, not fast. Not dramatic. Simply raising 2 fingers, as if measuring a pulse. Thomas's words died mid-sentence. "You speak like a man who's practiced these lines," Adrian said. "Too polished. Too smooth. Not nearly enough. Truth." Thomas stiffened. "I'm not sure what you think you're implying. It's not what I think," Adrian replied. "It's what she knows." He turned his gaze to Lily, offering her the gentlest nod, an invitation to speak if she wanted to. And she did. Her voice was tiny, but her courage filled the room. "He was at the fence," she said. "Every Tuesday. Every Thursday. He said my friend Sarah didn't need to walk home after choir." Thomas's jaw tightened. A twitch he tried to hide. Lily swallowed, pressing the backpack against her chest. "Sarah told me he gave her chocolate. In gold wrappers. Not from stores." Her eyes glistened. "And then, she didn't come back." The restaurant reacted in ripples, gasps, whispers, hands covering mouths. A few people reached for their phones but didn't dare move. Thomas forced a smile again. But cracks showed now. "Kids talk," he said. "They exaggerate. They confuse things." Lily shook her head. "You're lying." She said it with a steadiness that shattered every remaining pretense in the room. Adrian's men shifted at the edges of the restaurant. Seemingly casual, but strategically placed, one near the door, one near the windows, another behind Thomas's left side. They moved with the soft, practiced choreography of people who had done this before, though not often in a room full of millionaires, eating duck and risotto. Thomas noticed. His eyes flicked around, calculating, searching for exits he no longer controlled. Adrian leaned back in his chair, the very picture of composure. "Lily," he said, "tell me why you ran here." She hesitated, cheeks trembling, but she found her voice. "Because I saw Sarah's backpack," she said. 3 days ago. In his car. The purple one with cat pins. I knew it was hers. A hush fell so deep, the city noise outside became painfully loud. "I memorized the license plate," she whispered. Something felt wrong. The entire restaurant went cold. Even Adrian's expression changed barely. But enough. A shift behind his eyes. Like a steel door beginning to slide into place. Thomas shook his head quickly. She misunderstood, but he never finished. Adrian's security chief, a tall man named Rowan, approached quietly and murmured something in Adrian's ear. And the atmosphere changed instantly. Rowan's voice was low, but the words carried a weight that pressed every soul in the room deeper into their seats. "No Thomas Hale on record at her school," Rowan said. "New employee. No consultant. Nothing." Thomas froze. Rowan continued. "Cars registered to a shell corporation in Spokane. Fake address. Fake contact number. More ripples." Another quiet gasp. "And," Rowan added, "there are properties outside the city linked to the same shell company. 3 of them. Across state lines." Adrian didn't blink. He didn't breathe differently. He simply spoke in a tone colder than anything Lily had heard from him. You've been busy. Thomas's hands curled at his sides. I don't know who you think you are, he snapped. But you can't keep me here. You have no right. You're right about one thing. Adrian interrupted. I don't have the right. He stood so smoothly it felt like a tide rising. But I have the ability. His voice held no anger. Only certainty. Thomas stepped back. Stay away from me. You walked into the wrong room, Adrian said, taking a step forward, and chased the wrong child. Thomas's composure crumbled. He glanced at Lily. That was his mistake, because in the space of a heartbeat, he longed. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't planned. It was pure desperation, a cornered animal striking wildly. He reached for Lily's arm. Fingers curled like talons. He never got close. Adrian moved so fast, the tablecloth barely rustled. He stepped between them, one arm sweeping Lily behind him. Rowan caught Thomas mid-strike, pinning his wrist with bone-grinding force until Thomas dropped to his knees with a strangled cry. The restaurant erupted in panicked whispers. Adrian crouched. Not to Thomas, but to Lily. He lowered himself to her eye level, as though the chaos around them no longer existed. You're safe, he said softly. Do you understand? Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. No one touches you again. He didn't raise his voice to say it. He didn't need to. The promise itself was the threat, an unspoken sentence for anyone foolish enough to test him. Behind them, Thomas thrashed uselessly under Rowan's grip. You don't know what you're doing, Thomas gasped. You don't know who's involved. Adrian's eyes flicked toward him, sharp as broken stone. I know enough. Rowan's phone buzzed. He checked it for 2 seconds and then looked up with an expression that confirmed the worst. They searched the rural property. Rowan said, the one tied to the shell company. Silence swallowed the room whole. They found a child. Rowan continued. Alive. Lily's breath hitched so violently, it sounded like a sob breaking inside her chest. That's my friend, she whispered. Her knees buckled, and Adrian's hand was already there, resting lightly on her shoulder. Not claiming, not overpowering, just enough to keep her from collapsing. The first touch of warmth through all his cold armor. It's okay, he murmured. She's safe now. Lily pressed a fist to her mouth, crying silently, shoulders shaking. People watched with watery eyes. Unable to look away, Thomas went still, utterly still, not defeated, calculating. The kind of stillness that suggested his mind was running faster than ever. Adrian recognized it instantly. Rowan, he said, voice dipping into something darker. Call the detectives. They'll want to question him before I lose my patience. Rowan nodded and hauled Thomas upright. Thomas's legs gave out. But Rowan didn't loosen his grip. You think this ends with me, Thomas spat. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Adrian stared him down. You have no idea who you tried to take from under my roof. Rowan dragged him away, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. Lily wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, standing closer to Adrian now, as though drawn into the orbit of the one person who had proved he wouldn't let anything happen to her. Minutes later, sirens echoed from far below, climbing the hotel floors, growing louder, until police officers stepped from the elevator and crossed the restaurant in grim formation. Detective Keller approached Adrian with a mixture of caution and reluctant gratitude. We raided the property, Keller confirmed. Your information saved that girl's life. Lily cried harder at the word saved. Adrian placed a hand once again on her shoulder. It was steady, warm, grounding, a gesture he gave to no one else. Good, Adrian said quietly. Make sure she gets home. Keller nodded. We'll take it from here. No, Adrian said. You'll take him. She stays with me until her mother arrives. Keller hesitated, but only for a second. She nodded. Because tonight was bigger than jurisdiction. Bigger than rules. Bigger than any single man's reputation. And because Detective Keller, like everyone else in the room, had seen the way Lily looked at Adrian Morello, the way a terrified child only looked at someone who made her feel safe. Adrian watched the police escort Thomas out of the restaurant, his hand still resting gently on Lily's shoulder. For the first time that night, she breathed without shaking, and Adrian knew without needing to say it, that whatever darkness had chased her tonight, it would not touch her again. Not while he was alive. The chaos had barely settled when the elevator chimed again. A woman stumbled out, her breath uneven, her eyes wide with panic. Her coat half buttoned, as if she hadn't bothered to finish dressing before running out the door. Rachel Carver. She didn't look left or right. She followed something deeper than instinct, something primal. Ancient, the pull of a mother to her child. When her eyes fell on Lily, her knees nearly gave out. Baby, her voice cracked on the single word. She rushed forward, dropping beside her daughter and pulling her into her arms, with a trembling force that spoke of 3 solid minutes of terror. Lily clung to her mother, sobbing, but she did not release Adrian's sleeve. Her tiny fingers remained tangled in the fabric, refusing to let go of the man who had stood between her and whatever horror had chased her into the night. Rachel noticed, and in any other circumstance, she might have pulled Lily back, away from a stranger. But tonight wasn't any other night. She looked up at Adrian, eyes shining with a confusion of gratitude and disbelief. You kept her safe, she whispered. The words seemed too small for what she meant, too fragile to hold the emotion behind them. She ran here. To you. Adrian inclined his head, but said nothing. Words often cheapened moments like this. The truth didn't need to be spoken aloud. He had protected this child, in a way the world should have, but hadn't. Detective Keller approached slowly. Her expression, a complicated mix of professional resolve and the heaviness of what they'd uncovered. Ms. Carver, she said gently, I want you to know, your daughter is the reason we found the other girl. Her memory, her courage, she saved a life tonight. Rachel tightened her arms around Lily, as though she could shield her from everything, even praise. Keller continued, her voice quieting with respect. And we've confirmed that the man who followed her, Thomas Hale, is part of a trafficking network. Multiple states. Multiple victims. We're coordinating with federal agents now. Rachel's breath hitched, horror crashing into her expression. She wasn't imagining it. Keller added softly, your daughter saw things adults missed. And this man, she glanced at Adrian. He gave us critical information. If we'd waited until morning, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Rachel looked at Adrian again. Truly looked. This time, something like understanding washed over her, an understanding of what kind of man stood in front of her. A dangerous one, but not to them. Keller stepped closer to Adrian, lowering her voice so only he could hear. You sped up our investigation by weeks, she said. Maybe months. We'll never put that in writing. You know that. But, thank you. Adrian didn't acknowledge the gratitude. He just watched Lily, ensuring she was steady, safe, breathing cleanly again. Within minutes, paramedics and officers ushered Rachel and Lily out of the restaurant, shielding them from questions, noise, and the shadows of the night. Adrian remained where he stood, hands in his pockets, letting the room return slowly to its normal rhythm, but knowing nothing about tonight would be forgotten. 3 weeks passed. Seattle rolled through its usual winter moods, grey mornings, silver rain, and nights that glowed like glass beneath the streetlights. Lavara rooftop returned to its calm elegance. Patrons once again whispered about Adrian, though the story of that night circulated in softened. Reshaped fragments true enough to impress, vague enough to leave room for myth. On a Thursday evening, as the piano hummed through a low, warm melody, the matron approached Adrian's table. "There are two people asking for you. Mr. Morello," he said. "A woman and a child." Adrian already knew who it was. Some intuition, quiet but certain, settled in his chest. He nodded. Moments later, Rachel and Lily approached the table. Lily held something pressed tightly against her chest, a folded piece of paper. Edges creased from small hands, gripping it all the way here. She paused in front of Adrian, her cheeks warming, her eyes searching his face, the way children do when they're trying to understand the world through the people who shaped a moment in their lives. She slowly unfolded the paper. A drawing. Childlike lines. Shaky but earnest. A tall man, with broad shoulders. A tiny girl holding his hand. A shield drawn between them, and a shadow in the corner. The kind of drawing a therapist might frame. Lily cleared her throat. "I made this for you," she said softly. "Because you didn't let him take me." Adrian took it gently, more gently than anyone expected a man like him to move. He didn't smile, but his gaze softened, like frost thinning under warm light. Rachel touched Lily's shoulder. "Sweetheart, remember what you wanted to ask him?" Lily looked up at Adrian, courage gathering in her chest, like a breath she'd been holding for weeks. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "Is he coming back?" The restaurant faded around them. It didn't matter that people were watching. It didn't matter that Seattle glittered outside like 1,000 cold stars. Adrian crouched down slowly, bringing himself to her height. It wasn't something he did often, maybe ever, and the simple act carried the weight of truth. "No, sweetheart," he said. And this time his voice wasn't cold at all. It was warm, steady, absolute. "Some monsters never get back up again." Her lower lip quivered slightly as she absorbed the words. "And the ones who try," Adrian continued, his tone lowering into something fierce and gentle at the same time. "They find out people like me don't sleep." Lily released a breath, a long, shaky exhale that carried weeks of fear out of her small body. Her shoulders dropped, finally free of a weight no child should carry. Rachel swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "There isn't a word that comes close." Adrian rose to his full height, the drawing still in his hand. "Just keep her safe," he said. "That's all the payment I need." But when he looked at Rachel, something in his expression softened barely. "But enough." His voice lowered, its edges losing their chill. "And if you ever need anything," he stopped himself there, letting the implication hang. Not a promise, not a threat. Something in between. Something human. Rachel nodded, understanding more than he said. The piano shifted into a warm, slow melody. The city lights glowed behind them, reflected in the restaurant's glass walls, turning everything gold. Lily leaned into her mother's side. Rachel rested a steadying hand on her daughter's back. And for the first time, in a very long while, Adrian felt something he couldn't quite name. Not softness, not vulnerability, but a sense of possibility, a knowing that protecting one child had unexpectedly opened a door to something gentler than the world he lived in. One he hadn't realized he missed. Seattle shimmered in the background. Justice had been served. A family had been restored. And somewhere in the warm beats between piano notes, a new beginning quietly took root. And if this story moved you, If Lily's courage and Adrian's silent protection touch something in you the way they did for me, please take a moment to support this channel. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves emotional, powerful stories. Your comments mean more than you know. Tell me where you're watching from, and what part of the story stayed with you the most. Every like, every share, every comment helps this channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more stories of justice, courage, and the unexpected kindness found in the darkest moments. Thank you for being here, and until the next story, stay safe and take care of each other.